Hello everyone. First lesson of the day, don't bring a Mac to a presentation. Okay, now that the tech setup is fixed, let me start by introducing myself. Hi, I'm Sabrina, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm a consultant at Netlight. I would describe myself as someone who annoys people to communicate better, both in my private and my professional life. In my job, I'm an agile coach and project manager, and in my whole life, I feel connected to the topics of intersectionality and DEI, meaning diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today, I want to talk to you about intersectionality, about walls, and about open doors, or more explicitly, how intersectionality shapes our career journeys and how to find a sense of belonging as a marginalized person in tech. Okay, let's pause here. What does intersectionality even mean? Why should we talk about it? Why should I tell you about it? And how do we all have a chance of finding our place in the tech industry? So, what does intersectionality even mean? Let's start with an example that actually coined the term. In the 1980s, there was a woman seeking a job. As we all know, women face discrimination in the workplace. But our protagonist was also black. Now, as we all know, black people face discrimination. The company she applied for did not hire her, not because of a lack of expertise, but because she was a woman of color. The company, however, emphasized, we don't discriminate. We do have women. They just all happen to be white. We also have people of color. They just all happen to be men. What happened here was that the combination of two forms of prejudices led to the company discriminating against that woman of color. To paint a picture, it's like you're at a crossroad and not only one car is hitting you, but two at the same time. Your chances of a good outcome are already bad with one car only, but with two, let's say it doesn't look too good. Full disclosure, that metaphor stems from the very smart Jennifer Dankwa. It's not mine, I stole it. And while the phenomenon of being discriminated against based on multiple factors is not new, it was actually new as a lawsuit in the 1980s. So based on this case and further scientific studies, the law professor Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectionality. Okay, now we know what that means, but why should we even talk about it? Maybe you're personally affected by it. Maybe you know someone who's lacking those privileges. Or maybe this today is your chance at becoming an ally. Marginalized genders like women are still a minority in the tech industry. Same goes for people of color. Or think about how many openly queer or disabled people you know in tech. We cannot ignore that intersectional CVs make it a lot harder to thrive in the tech industry. But I believe we all can learn something from intersectional journeys and change the status quo together while finding our place of belonging. So, why should I tell you about it? My personal intersections are being a woman, growing up in a poor household, and being queer. Intersectional discrimination did shape my career. Most times, it made it harder. But I did find my place in the tech industry, my community, and a sense of belonging. So, how do we all find our place in the tech industry? Let's go on a journey together, how this has affected my career, how companies can open doors and tear down some walls with you, how I found hope and a place of belonging in the tech industry, and most importantly, which role communities and the acknowledgement of your own intersectional traits play in that journey. Let's start with the acknowledgement of the walls we run into. Not sure if you know the feeling of running against a wall. As most of you are part of a marginalized gender in tech, I can imagine you do. For me, the first wall I ran into, I did not even realize it was there. When I was a teenager, my male friends started developing an interest in computers. In their free time, they would learn how to code. While I found informatics quite interesting and would have loved to code, I was quickly humbled by the Sabrina and computers, never jokes. I didn't want to make my male friends to make fun of me, so I let it slide. When it came to choosing a subject to study, I went with communication science. As I told you, I love to annoy people to communicate better. But the nagging feeling of missing out reached a peak at the end of my studies. So I finally started to study business informatics and chose to do a second bachelor's degree. And surprise, surprise, I actually learned how to code. Sabrina and computers, what? But not without running into the next wall. At a career trade fair, similar to this one, my female friend and I looked into working student jobs when a friendly IT recruiter gave us a coffee mug with shortcuts for an IDE on it. For those of you who are wondering what an IDE is, that's the program you usually write your code in. Her male colleague intervened. They don't know how to use that. They are only in the first semester. First of all, it's a mug. It's really not that serious. Second of all, minutes before, our male friends from the same first semester had been welcomed by that guy in quite a different manner. Don't worry, it does not stop there, but I'm sure you all have similar stories to tell, and we can acknowledge the wall. So let's see how we can overcome it. By finding your community and putting it to work. In my second semester, I joined a mingle night at Netlight, the company I work for today. When I was enjoying my lemonade with that same female friend and a guy from our studies, a recruiter from Netlight approached us and asked if she could have a chat. Nearly excusing herself, she said, "Well, actually, can I talk with the two of you? Because I would like to talk about an event series for women and marginalized genders in tech." She was talking about the Code Pub, the format I represent today. A networking platform by Netlight for women and marginalized genders in computer science. It made me feel like I would not be a person of second class due to my gender. It was an event that was made for someone like me, giving me a safer space and a sense of belonging. I did find my community. But to be really honest with you, I did not realize how much I needed it, so I did not go. So it was more like finding your community, but not putting it to work. I did not recognize there might be a place of belonging. I did recognize there might be a place of belonging, but I did not yet understand how to get there. And I underestimated the power of a great community at that point. So let's start again. Again, by acknowledging the walls we run into. Already during my first semesters in Munich, I learned that most people studying here were financed by their parents. No shame in that, they had you, they better pay for your education. I often heard the question, can't you simply ask your parents for money? Aha, there it was. The age-old cliché, students are poor, but parents have money. Of course, unless they don't. So far, this didn't really feel like a wall, more like a nuisance. Not until the lack of money I was brought up with led me to not being able to go abroad. I finance myself since I'm 18 years old, and for my second bachelor's degree, I had to take on a student loan. Sometimes I wonder what life had been like if I had been brought up as a boy. Would I have directly chosen the technical degree and avoided the student loan like my male partner? What if I had the resources of my female friend who also did the detour of a non-technical degree first because she also did not trust herself the first time around, but was financed by her parents? My intersection of being a woman and coming from a poor household cost me both time and a lot of money. Going abroad was simply not in the books. So far, so good. That only means I can't go abroad. I did not realize it would become such a topic until I looked into jobs for after university. Suddenly, your semester abroad was all anyone ever wanted to hear about. During a scholarship program for women in tech, we visited a large hardware company in Stuttgart. The HR guy told us, "You actually stand out if you didn't go abroad." He did not mean in a good way. I did not even want to work for that company, and for sure not in Stuttgart. I anyway started crying. Again, a door had been shut before I could even knock. The acknowledgement being the intersection of being a woman with limited financial resources not only meant I couldn't go abroad, it also meant less job opportunities. In that very low moment, my fellow scholarship holders comforted me. They did not diminish what impact that moment had on me, but listened. And once I was ready, they were there, giving me perspectives and solutions. This time, I did realize the power of the community I had found. That network of incredible women were the key to actually believing in myself. So what does that look like? First of all, they give you a reality check. All of them are incredibly smart. And still, every one of them was underestimated at least once due to their gender. So maybe it is not just you. And maybe the imposter syndrome in your head can shut up. Second of all, if people go through the same thing as you, their advice is actually helpful. That goes for both your peers in a community, but also for seniors in that same community that show you what is possible, but are still honest about what lays ahead of you. Third of all, when people can relate to what you went through, they become incredible cheerleaders. All this empowerment ultimately led me back to Netlight. When I joined the interview process at Netlight, I was quite worried that the topic of having been abroad would come up again. Never in my whole recruiting and hiring process at Netlight had I been asked if I was abroad. Or better, why had I not been abroad? And I can assure you, Netlight is a crazily international company, so it would matter. They did not see me for what I lacked, but for what I actually brought to the table. Now, I would love to tell you that Netlight is the paradise and nothing bad or sexist ever happens here. I'm really sorry. We are still part of a society that isn't necessarily kind on marginalized genders and marginalized groups in general. But I can tell you about open doors and the lack of walls to end on a light note. During my time at Netlight, I got the chance to become a driver of PRISM, our LGBTQIA+ community. In June this year, we attended the Munich Pride Parade for the first time in the company's history, which meant so much to me as a queer person. And I had the privilege of co-organizing my personal highlight of this year. The joy we all felt and the sense of belonging I've been mentioning over and over again can be seen here in the picture. Having a safer space allowed me to shape the experience of my own community. This is not only an anecdote about how much I enjoy working at Netlight, but a story about hope to find your place where people and even your employer appreciates you for who you are, instead of making you run into walls because of who you are not. So how about recognizing your place of belonging and creating one for the next you? Now, I won't tell you you can achieve anything if you work hard enough and truly believe in yourself. For me, that is an inspirational quote for white cis men who grew up with a lot of money. But with a request. Please don't ever be afraid to take up space, neither in life nor in the tech industry. That's how you create communities and tear down walls. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sabrina. So, are there any questions in the audience? Go for it. No questions?
I overwhelmed everyone.
Okay, so I have a few questions. Going back with the knowledge you have today, would you do anything different in your journey?
I think I've been asked that quite often, and it's super hard to say. And I think you never know, like, would things have been different with the knowledge or anything? And I think in the moments where I made those decisions, it were the right decisions for me. And I don't regret, for example, doing my first bachelor's degree. I gained a lot of knowledge that I still, like, benefit from today. So I think the important part is, like, going back, making peace with the decisions you made in that moment because you didn't have all the information.
Okay, thank you very much. And what can we all do to remove barriers from multiple marginalized people?
I think what everyone can do is taking it serious when someone tells you about their experience and actually believing people when they share their stories of discrimination and not diminishing what it does to them on a daily basis. And as an employer, I think you can go the extra mile and look for those kind of talents and think about what do these people need? Where do I find these people? Why aren't they in the same room as probably the cliche computer science person I'm thinking about? And I believe all companies can benefit from that as well. But it does take for employers to go the extra mile to create safer spaces there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And how can I start my own community to uplift like-minded people?
I think just by starting to talk to your friends, to people who relate to you, and also being open about your own stories. I had situations in uni at lunch where I shared a story that was like super vulnerable, and I was wondering if I even overshared, and then someone said, wow, this is actually my experience, and it's so nice to hear someone tell me that, because I always thought I was the only one feeling like that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, making the first step by telling your story.
Okay, thank you very much, Sabrina. It's a very important topic, so don't be shy to go to the booth and talk to her. Yes, thank you very much.